guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and yeah, you knew it was going to happen. T-Mobile myTouch 4G, T-Mobile G2, carriers high-end Android devices, both of which support HSPA Plus or 4G, depending on what you want to call it. Both Android, both have high-end Snapdragon processors, both have 5-megapixel cameras. The list goes on and on, but at the end of the day, they're both high-end devices, and they're both HSPA Plus capable. So we're going to do a dogfight? Absolutely. But first, special thanks to our friends at Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with not one, not two, but 4 of these devices total. 2 myTouch 4Gs, 2 T-Mobile G2s for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway. You know one thing I love about Best Buy Mobile? The price that you walk in, you pay it. So you don't have to worry about rebates, anything like that, messy paperwork, waiting 8 to 10 weeks. You walk in, you get this device for $199 or this device for $199 out the door. Don't have to deal with any mess on that front. So if you're like me, I never mail them anyway. So, 2 months later, you look and realize the paperwork's on your desk. It's a little frustrating. But at Best Buy Mobile, you get the after rebate price. So that's definitely pretty cool. But enough of that. Let's get into the dogfight, rather. T-Mobile myTouch 4G, T-Mobile G2. Special thanks to our friends at T-Mobile for hooking us up with both of these. Let's get started. Okay, it's dogfight time. T-Mobile myTouch 4G, T-Mobile G2. Both available as of now in the retail stores, and both for $199.99 after a $50 mail-in rebate card on the Even More plans. Now, where it differs a little bit is on the Even More Plus plans. If you buy the myTouch 4G, it's actually $50 cheaper at $449.99, whereas the G2 is $499.99. So if you're buying on an Even More Plus plan, you're buying full retail, this one's $50 cheaper. If you're buying on a contract, they're both the same after a $50 mail-in rebate in terms of pricing. Hardware-wise, both feel great in the hand. Obviously, this is a slab device with a touchscreen only. This is a device with, touchscreen and a keyboard. That said, the screen is a little bit smaller on the G2 at 3.7 inches versus 3.8, although they're both LCD displays and they have the same pixels, 480 by 800 pixels. 3.8, 3.7, and, in my opinion, just looking at the displays, I have to give it to the myTouch 4G. I feel like the display, even though it's sporting the same technology, very rich in terms of colors, just absolutely gorgeous display, and you can see, as I showed you in the myTouch 4G review, colors are really sharp, the black really pops, blacks are very black, whereas this is a great screen, don't get me wrong, but in terms of just comparing to the screen, I'd have to give it to the myTouch 4G. Now, in terms of design, a little bit thinner, obviously, because it doesn't have a physical QWERTY keyboard, whereas this one does. But in terms of weight, you're looking at about 6.5 ounces on the G2 and 5 ounces on the myTouch 4G. So a little bit smaller here. a little bit lighter weight, rather, on the myTouch 4G front. That said, it doesn't have the physical QWERTY, so that's a positive in the G2 camp. Now, in terms of dimensions, very similar in terms of height and in terms of width. Where you'll notice the difference is when you put them side by side on the ground. This one's 0.43 inches high. This one's 0.55 inches high. So it doesn't sound huge, but you can see, when you're holding them side by side, and you hold them up like that, a little bit chunkier on the G2 side. Now, again, it has a physical QWERTY keyboard, so if that's something you need, well, you shouldn't be watching this dogfight, because if you absolutely need the keyboard, that's the device for you. But if you're on the fence and the keyboard isn't a huge thing for you, then size-wise, the myTouch 4G takes the case. Now, in terms of software, both are running Android 2.2, but this one's running a myTouch customized version of HTC Sense UI. This one's running, for the most part, vanilla Android. So, this one has a 1 gigahertz next-generation Snapdragon processor. This one has an 800 megahertz next-generation Snapdragon processor. And while you're thinking, hey, wait a second, the G2 is obviously slower, not necessarily the case. It's running a vanilla version of Android, whereas this is running an overlay in Sense UI. So we'll do some speed tests later in the videos, but you'll see, that may or may not, that 200 megahertz may or may not equate to a huge processor or a huge performance bump in the long term due to the software that this is running as opposed to this. But as I said, myTouch 4G Sense UI on this one, vanilla Android on this one. And, in terms of software alone, it all boils down to what you prefer. If you're an intermediate smartphone user or a die-hard Android lover, the G2 is your device. It's the closest thing to stock since the Nexus 1, and more importantly, it's available on an actual carrier. So huge pro there. Nice to see that it's available. In terms of a retail or a national carrier, so you can go into the store and buy it and not have to order it through Google or anything like that. Now, on the other hand, this one, first-time smartphone buyers, people that are migrating to Android from another platform, I'd say have a look at the myTouch 4G. Sense UI is very easy to use, and I think Sense UI offers a nice balance between being good for consumers and being great for intermediate smartphone users. Now, if you're going to root the device and do all of those things that the Android people do, I'll use crazy Android people. No, I'm just kidding. But if you do that, the G2 may be the better device for you. But in terms of just out-of-the-box functionality, as a first-time smartphone buyer, or maybe even as an intermediate smartphone user, I'd say the myTouch 4G. You want the vanilla version? You have it in the G2. So it's a wash there. It depends on what you want the most. For me, I like Sense UI, so I would probably, just on software alone, I'd probably go with the myTouch 4G. That said, there's nothing wrong with the vanilla version of Android 2.2. It's all personal preference. So, kind of a wash there. Can't really give it one way or the other. It all depends on what you use it for in terms of software. So let's talk a little bit more about hardware. One of those frustrations I usually have in a dogfight or anytime I'm comparing two devices, one feels great in the hand and the other one's kind of plasticky, kind of cheap feeling. Not the case with either one of these devices. Both are fantastic, both have a nice metal feel to them, and both have metal battery doors. Props to the G2 for having the metal battery cover switch, which I can flip and it pops the battery off. So very easy to remove, don't have to worry about prying it off. This one, on the other hand, is actually kind of hard to get off, and because I don't have fingernails, you have to really dig down in there to get it. So usually what I've been doing to cheat is actually take the G2 back and pop it off. So I guess the G2 gets half a point for helping me get the myTouch 4G back off. Anyway, 1300 milliamp battery in the G2, 1400 milliamp battery in the myTouch 4G. We'll jump into some of the details on that a little bit later in the dogfight, but both come with micro SD cards, 8 gigabytes on the myTouch side. Pop that back in. And then on the G2 side, which it's under the battery, so you actually have to turn the device off to get it, 8 gigabytes as well. So it's down there underneath the battery, and we'll power this back on. Now, go a little bit more in depth. On the left side, you have your volume rocker on both devices, micro USB charging port, again on the left on both devices. And on the myTouch 4G, you have some sort of connector prongs here on the side, which I'm assuming are for a dock or dock or some other accessory in the future, or group of accessories in the future. Now on the right side, camera shortcut button, same thing on the G2, and then 3.5mm headphone jack on the top, power button just flipped around. So in terms of design, when you look at it from that perspective, very similar. Both have 5 megapixel cameras that are capable of shooting video at 720p, and the real difference in the hardware front comes on the myTouch 4G's inclusion of a front-facing front-facing camera rather. So you can take self-portraits of yourself. When you want to send that picture of yourself, flexing your muscles to your girlfriend, you can do it without having to flip the device around and look in a mirror. So that's a nice touch. Not saying I've done that before, but that's a nice touch there. And it's good for video chat, quickest pre-installed on the myTouch 4G. So you get that out of the box, and you can use that whether you're on HSPA Plus or whether you're on HSPA. Or any of that. Now I'm assuming it would get pretty grainy if you tried to operate it on Edge, but you get the idea there. So hardware both feel great and look great to boot. Now, just to jump into some of the software stuff, let's talk about keyboards, for example, first. You'll notice right out of the box, before I jump into that, you'll see the menus are very different. On this one, myTouch has always been about personalization. I know I jump around a lot, but I'll get back to the keyboard in a second. myTouch is all about personalization. When you get this device out of the box, they want you to personalize it to make it you. So to that end, they have themes on this device, some different wallpaper options, and what's called My Modes, which allows you to transition between work and play and some of the other things you do on a regular basis. So if you set your device up for work mode, when you get home or when you're on the weekends, you can change it to personal mode, and that'll custom change everything for you. So let's jump into the settings real quick to show you that. And you can see My Modes actually in the menu there. So that's where you can change it from standard, kid zone. If you have your kids that are playing with the device, it disables access to messaging and some of the network connectivity stuff. Home and work, so you can apply those. But what I really want to show you are the settings, or the themes rather. You can go up to personalize, and you can see I've expanded the home screen. Out of the box, you get 5 home screens. Rather, you can expand it to 7. Which is the typical Sense UI number. Once you expand it to 7, you can't go back without a factory reset. But let's have a look at the themes, and you can see here, you can choose one of the 7 themes. I think I'm on Carrera right now, but you can go through Downtown, Graffiti, Red Rock, Ruby, Safari, Wildflower, etc., etc. So, let's say you're really feeling a downtown vibe. You select it, and not only does it change the wallpaper and some of the things like that, it changes the icons as well. You'll notice that the dock at the bottom, or the app drawer rather, is different on downtown. You notice the background's different, and then you'll notice some slight color changes as well when I jump into the phone. So it's all about personalization there. Whereas vanilla Android, it's not the most aesthetically pleasing user interface of all. So like you look at the dial pad differences here, it's certainly functional. It's not bad by any means, but I find that Sense is very easy to use and also offers some features that I look for in a device. For example, here from the bottom, I can go directly to contacts, to my faves, to my dialer, to call log, to voicemail, all while staying on the same screen. I just rotate between the 5 icons by holding my finger holding my finger down and moving it. On this side, I have the voicemail shortcut, sure, and I have the tabs up top. A little bit of a downside there, but a perk on this one, you'll notice my last call was 611. Well, if I had contacts, and actually I think I do have some in here. So let's say, I love to call check minutes. That's my favorite, my best friend. I can start to type in CH for check, and it brings up all 3 matches that have check somewhere in the name. Same thing with numbers. You type in 555, it's going to bring up their number, or anybody's number that has 555 somewhere in the actual number. So nice touch there. Not only does it show your last dialed number, but it shows the surging contacts as well. Again, personal preference. For some people, that's going to annoy the heck out of them. For other people, it's a great option. It's very friendly, and it's much better than the vanilla version of Android. But that just kind of points out some of the differences between Sense UI and vanilla Android. Both are great, but it depends on what you want. Personalization, the myTouch 4G is where it's at. Vanilla experience and a little bit more techy appearance, the G2 is where it's at. Now, both have live wallpapers, so, it's not to say that the G2 is completely void of personalization. You can change the ringtones, you can change the wallpapers, and you can do some things like that. But that said, the theme options, things like that, are only available in the myTouch 4G.